My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Have you ever had a close encounter? One so close that your semen or ovum were used to produce a hybrid offspring, a part alien, part human child. My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Dave Emmons, had this very experience and much, much more. Having his first UFO sighting at age 14 in 1963, Dave Emmons went on to have at least 6 contact, abduction experiences and other high strangeness. His work is featured at HangarOnePublishing.com, and he joins me this week to share his amazing story and new book, They. What Do They Want? Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Dave Emmons. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you for having me on the show. This is a kind of surprise. I think you wrote me yesterday, and I have an open weekend, and of course, being retired, I have a lot of open time, and I love doing this type of work. I love meeting people like yourself, and it looks like we have a lot of synchronicities together. So it's this. I feel like I'm at home now.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And there's no such thing as retirement. I learned that lesson very, very rapidly this last few months. So.
Yeah, from what you're telling me, you're doing very well. And just keep going and keep the mind going. That's what my 94-year-old mother tells me. And she says, she pointed to her head, she says, keep your mind going. And after my first book, she saw it. She says, I didn't think you can write. No, she didn't say that. She said, congratulations. She says, that's great. So, yeah, I love writing when I got time, if I'm in a good mood. You know yourself, being a writer yourself and having, your wife having so many books too, that you have to be in a peaceful, easy feeling before you can actually sit there in your corner and start writing. And
discipline also. It's a discipline. You have to be able to sit there and just focus on what you're doing and do it.
Right. Yeah.
Before we get into the numerous contact experience that you've had in your new book, please share with our listeners your early life, your school years, your time in the service, and what you did after the Army.
Okay. I started off, we had 11 kids in the family. And of course, that meant we didn't have a whole lot of money to go around. So we played outdoors in the dirt, and we threw dirt clods and things of that nature as fun. But now kids, they're on a computer and they never get dirty. In one respect, that's great. But another respect, you have to be a kid and be creative and have an imagination and do things with a cardboard box. And that's what we did. But my childhood was typical of most kids. I was born, my mom told me, she said, make sure you mention the gray, long sideburns you were born with. I said, okay. So I mentioned in the book, she told me to do that. I said, why did you ask me to do that? She goes, she said, when you were born, she thought with the gray sideburns that I was a special child, that I was advanced or something. That's what she's told me. So, through school, I did all right. I was on the honor roll, but I didn't have enough money to go to college, although I was stupid, I guess you could say. A year or two before I graduated from high school, they offered me a football scholarship. And I was playing music with my brother and my 2 friends. And so I couldn't do that. And I told them that. And they got a little mad at me. So I maybe should have taken that. But after I got out of school, I went to work the next day in a factory to make some money to get going, get myself a car and everything. So I did that. And then a year later, they told me I was going to be drafted. And the sad thing about it, Victor, is that when there's kids that have a lot of people in the family and they don't have money, the school actually turns you in to the draft board and they say, well, get this kid. He ain't going to college, draft him. So I was going to be drafted anyway. So I enlisted. I took a battery of tests, and those tests turned out to be pretty high, just like my IQ in the 12th grade. But I took the test, and the guy that was, he was the, I guess, recruiting sergeant and at the time here in town. He told me, he said, I said, what job I can get involved in? He said, anything you want. I said, what? He said, yeah, anything you want. He said, your test scores were very high. I said, okay. And I thought this was really nice. I said, how about nuclear weapons? He goes, you got it. And so I went in the military with nuclear weapons as my training after boot camp. Of course, got through boot camp in Fort Leonard Wood. And then I went to Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, Huntsville, which is a top secret place now, and it always has been, really. I went there for the nuclear weapons training, but it took 6 months for me to get a top secret clearance. And this is where I feel bad, because after a couple of months, I didn't like the class. And the reason I didn't like it, a lot of people who interview me talk about that. They say, you got a top secret security clearance. I said, yes, I did. I said, but I didn't like the class. I had an 89% average. I was the only high school graduate out of the class. The rest of them, there was 14 of them, and there was about half of them had master's degrees. They had bachelor's degrees. I was the only one with a high school diploma that was in that class. I had an 89% average, and I wanted out because every weekend we met in this little rec room, and there was military intelligence guys coming over and sitting by. I said, take turns. And we just sat there, and they would ask us questions that who won you're from the Missouri area for Cardinals, right? Yeah, baseball Cardinals. Yeah. I said, yeah, they won yesterday. And they ask you questions like that. And I said, why are you asking those kind of questions? Well, we just have to get to know you. And they said, oh, what do you write home about? Do you tell your family anything that you're doing? I looked at him. I said, no. I said, you open up my mail and you check it before it goes out. I said, I don't talk about anything. Hey, look, I said, I'm not going to mess up this top secret. They check on you all the time when you first start. Actually, they check on you all the time as you're working in it for years. But I didn't like that. And I was 19, I was turning 20 at that point. And I said, I can't handle this. So I had to go to post chaplain to get out of the class. So he got me out of the class. It took a couple of weeks or so to do it. And then my commanding officer, he told me, he says, well, after you take this clerical class, you got to have MOS. So I did that, took a quick class, and I was in charge of the orderly room. And the captain said, I can stay there if I wanted to. And my brother got orders for Vietnam. His wife was going to have a baby. So I said, okay, I will go to Vietnam instead of him. I want to block him. And he says, okay, fine. I got orders for Vietnam. The day or two later, that's how quick they can operate when they want to. So I got orders. And then I told my brother, I said, stay where you're at in New Jersey, Fort Dix. I said, I'm going to Vietnam. You're having a child. I'm going to go to Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam, and I become actually a platoon leader. I was a sergeant, led a platoon of 42 guys, and had some weird things happen there. I think the angels helped me, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I got out of the Army, and then I played music. I played music for about 45 years with my brothers. I was an electrician. I went from there and worked in Chicago with their X-Ray Corporation. And then after that, I managed a couple of small businesses. And then after that, I had a little stint of unemployment. And I said, oh, my goodness, this ain't good. So I didn't like that. So I worked with the Red Cross for a couple of years. And then I worked at a refinery as a supervisor, as a lead man in a refinery here in Hartford, Illinois. And after that, I finished that one up. I went into business of my own, and I failed that. There was a big time loss, and I don't want to ever do that again. I never got back in business again. So after that, I kind of took a couple of jobs in management, business management. And then I just, in 2010, I just took a retirement, actually early. Took an early retirement because I had a back surgery, and I couldn't get a lot of different jobs. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do something else. So I started traveling. I started taking pictures. I love photography. I went to Sedona many times in Arizona, and that's where I found quite a few things that happened that's in my book. And I will talk about those as we go on, Victor. So that's part of my life there. I'm married right now, and we're doing fine. I don't like all this last 2 years of this confinement, but I'm doing good. I like doing the radio thing, and I do that, and also the writing of the books. So that's me.
Wonderful. In your book, What
Yes.
Do They Want? You share that your first conscious UFO experience happened in 1963 at age 14. Prior to that time, do you have any recollection of anything unusual, or did anyone in your family report any strange experiences?
Yes, the family and we would see these orbs. I don't count orbs anymore when I see them. I just they're not. I have to see it since I've seen six ships close up. I have to see them close up to say, yeah, that's a UFO or UAP, like they want us to say. But I'm going to stick with the UFO. But actually, in '62, I saw something that's in my book. It looked like it was flat, looked like a little barge. It was about 60 feet long, probably about 30 feet wide, somewhere like that. It had bright lights on the front, and then it had a blue glow at the bottom. And I was sitting in the backyard at about 8:30 in the evening. It was starting to get dark, and I saw this thing, and I looked up, and that's all I remember. The next thing I remember, I had to share a bed with my older brother, so I ended up in bed, and my legs were numb, and I felt numb all over. And later on in 2011, I found out what that was all about. But my legs were numb, and I felt somebody standing next to me, so I was afraid. I couldn't talk much. So then this object next to me must have disappeared, and it was gone. I felt free, and then my legs started coming back to myself, my hands. I turned to my brother. I said, "Did you see or hear anything?" He said, "No, go to sleep." So that was actually my first one, but it was kind of just, it was partly conscious because I was sitting in the yard. It was only just about 10, 15 seconds of looking at this craft, and all of a sudden I don't remember anything. I ended up in the bed, like I just told you. Now, the first one that I had a witness with, best friend of mine, he turned out to be a cop, a chief of police, and all this other stuff. So he's more rigid about what he sees. So it was 1963. We're sitting on the steps where he lived with his dad in the basement apartment. We were drinking Pepsi from a glass bottle, and that dates me right there. The 10 transistor radio, we had it playing, and it was snapping and popping. And we were wondering, what's going on with the radio? I said, "Did you change the batteries?" I asked my friend. He said, "Yes, I just did tonight." And then we smelled this smell that was kind of like sulfur smell to us. As kids, we thought it was sulfur smell. Later on, I heard, from smelling different samples of things through life, it was ozone smell, actually, that was coming off the bottom of the craft. We saw the lights just coming above the treetops, going real slow. So we went up, and we got a flashlight from my friend's dad's truck, and he got the flashlight. He started blinking the flashlight at this thing, and it was moving real slow. And we was following it, paralleling it, and keeping up with it, just walking slow, and it moved slow too. He flashed the flashlight, but I think he said that it was responding back. But in my memory, I don't think they were responding back with light. The lights were hitting the tops of the tree tops, the tops of the trees where the leaves were at, and that's why the lights were coming in and going out. And he thought it was blinking back at him, but he kept doing it. And I said, "Yeah, let's keep blinking." We walked up to this empty lot, and this empty lot was just right above my house, and it's just a little incline. You go down, and you're in my backyard. So this craft was over my backyard. It was probably about 70 feet up, 75 feet, about 30 feet wide, 35 feet wide. And it looked like one of these fat discs that you had when you was a kid. It had a little screw crank on it that you'd make it spin. And it had 3 layers. And the first layer looked like it was about 8 to 10 feet. And then the second layer was about 7 or 8 feet. And the top had a little dome on it. Looks like it was about 5 feet tall. It had antennae sticking up on top, and it had a red light in the middle of the craft. And they turned down their lights a little bit as we were standing there. We kept looking at this on the second level. It had these windows, these portals, and we could see shadows moving. I told my friend, I said, "I don't want to see him." I said, but I was looking, how the kid is. He's scared, but he wants to see it. It's like going to a movie. You want to be scared. That's why you go to a movie for these horror movies. But I was watching the windows, and my buddy pinched me, and he said, "Are we seeing what we believe?" And he pinched me hard. And I said, "That hurt. Stop it." And then he said, "Just wanted to make sure we wasn't dreaming." And I said, "Okay." And we kept looking at this thing, and something happened at that point. It was about 10:30 in the evening when this all started. It was just the beginning of summer, and we just got out of school. And something must have happened there. I remember a few things. that we talked about. My brother Jack, he's missing this and all this other stuff because he hung out with us too. But I thought, wow, yeah, he is missing this. And all of a sudden, something just didn't seem right. We were back on the lot, the empty lot, just where we were standing, almost exactly. And I didn't remember too much. And I said, or what happened? He goes, I don't know. And I said, I saw it fly out. And he said he didn't see it fly out. He said he heard a kind of a humming, buzzing sound. I didn't hear that. I was paying attention to the windows, the portals with the dark shadows and everything. So usually when you have an observation, you got 2 or 3 people, they usually focus in on something that's either audible or something that is visual. And I was looking at the visual. He heard some audible, sounds, and I didn't really hear him. And I tried to listen to him. I didn't really hear him, but he said he heard him. But I saw the craft zoom out to the west. I went back some years later. I thought, I'm going to map this out. And, we talked about this journalistic thing a while ago, but I'm going to, I had 4 or 5 years of school in journalism. I failed to mention that, Victor, but that's how I kept my notes and everything. But when this thing took off, it went real fast. It went up into the clouds. And I thought, wow, it's going. And he didn't see it. My friend didn't see it leave. So I'm not sure if he wasn't totally still out of, being dumbed down like they do. They hit you with this magnetic energy. They dumb you down. You don't know anything. You're not paying an attention really to anything except they just want you to not pick up a ball bat. Don't pick up a camera. Just just chill out. That's what this dumb down thing is. So he said, I'm going to go home and tell my dad. And I said, I'm going to go home and tell my mom. Well, when I got to the house, my mom had the doors locked. And she said, where have you been? You know how late it is? I said, no, Mom, I saw a flying saucer. And that's what we called them back then. She said, a flying saucer. I said, she said, it's late. Get your flying saucer butt in the house. And she said, I'll flying saucer your butt, in that respect. But, I went in, and then my friend told me the next day he talked to his dad, and his dad said, yes, son, you saw a flying saucer. Good, go to bed. So they didn't pay any attention to us kids. It was like, okay. And here was my mom told us all the time, warned us all the time back in the late 50s, early 60s, don't approach a flying saucer. They're dangerous. Yeah, there was warnings on the radio and TV. It says, if you see a flying saucer, don't approach it. Stay away from them. But we didn't. I mean, we approached it. We did just the opposite. That I didn't know what time it was. My buddy didn't know what time it was either. We didn't have watches on, so we're young. We didn't have watches. We just didn't keep track of time. But my mom knew what time it was, but she never said it. I wish she would have said it was midnight, because I think that's what time it was. It was from 10:30 to midnight. So we had an hour or so of missing time. I had a regress dream just a little while after that. It's in my book, What Do They Want? And the regress dream, I was on this metal table and I was sitting there. It was dark and it was kind of warm in that room. I couldn't figure out where my buddy was at. I felt his presence, but I couldn't see him. It was dark. I tried to put on a shirt, and the shirt was too small for me. He was a little smaller than me. I was always a little chubby guy. And I tried to put the shirt on. I couldn't. And I just was real weak. And my hands fell to my knees, and then something must have changed the shirts around and got us into the right shirts, because we ended up with the same clothes and our clothes on that lot. That was one of the dreams I had. The other thing that happened, the other shoe that fell, talking journalistically, the other shoe was about 3 weeks later, and it might have been 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure. 2 weeks to even a month. I felt something in my left testicle, and it was a lump. I said, what's that? So, as a young man, I was curious what's going on. I felt it, and I said, that's weird. I looked at it, and there was an inch line cut. It's a laser cut. Now that I know what it is, it was a laser cut about an inch line in my testicle area. So I pushed it out of that cut line. It took me a couple minutes to keep pushing, and it came out of that line that was cut. So I had the common sense enough, being only 14, to know that I could push that back out of that cut line, because that's how it got in there, through that cut line. A very fine red line. I took it out. When I had it in my hand, it was actually an ash color, a light ash. And as I had it in the oxygen, it was turning darker and darker. I took it to my mom and I showed her. And she said, "What's that?" I said, "I got that out of my testicles, Mom." She goes, "Oh, that's just an ingrown hair." She said, "Throw that thing away." I said, "No, Mom." There was a cut line in my testicle that I took it back out of. I said, "How could that be?" She said, "There was a line, a cut in your I said, "Yes, that's how I pushed it out." And she froze. And she didn't say anything more. She said, "Just throw it away." She didn't want to, confirm it and scare me, because she wanted me not to be afraid of life or whatever. But I already knew at 14, I already had enough common sense to know that I associated that with that flying saucer I saw just 3 weeks or so prior to that.
My guest is Dave Emmons. His new book, What Do They Want? Dave, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and your amazing story.
Okay, my book, Victor, is selling on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kindle, and a couple other Roku, other sites. But Amazon is probably about the best to get it on. The book has got my life from the age of 13 to the present time, because I have incidents that happen to me now. I'll discuss those towards the end of the show, but they can get the book off the internet on Amazon. My website is not mine. It's the publisher's. You can go to Hangar One Publishing and visit Alex and Doug Hadjacek, and they are great people, and they actually are producers of TV shows like Monster Quest and a lot of different shows. So they're into this subject quite a bit, and that's why they went ahead and published my book. But that book is on sale now. My next book is Senseless Wars, a perspective from a combat veteran, and that'll be out in about a month. The publisher has that, and now I'm working on Angels, Watchers, and Mysterious Things that I'm going to finish that up hopefully in about a month or so. So that's a lot of work, 3 books in about 9 months.
Congratulations. And we'll be back with more of Dave after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Or clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Dave Emmons. His new book, What Do They Want? Dave, in the first segment, you talked about finding an item that did not belong to your body in your body.
Right.
Many contactees report implants after experiences. And I shared with you prior to our interview that I found an implant in my left thumb, between my thumb and my left palm,
Right.
Confirmed by x-rays and so on. Tell us more about any additional implants you found, and what did you do about them?
Well, I found the same thing, Victor. We were just comparing that X-ray in the book with an object between my thumb joint and my palm, just exactly where yours was at. And the doctor said, if it doesn't bother you, I won't cut it out. But he says I could cut it out, but let's wait on that. I said, okay. I did find another implant in 2011 in my left leg. It was in my calf of my leg, and I scratched it, and a little blood popped out. And I said, what's that? It was a little round hole. It kind of looked like the red line I had, in my first, I guess you don't really know how many implants you got. Some of them are, I think somebody told me that they put some obvious implants so you can find them. So that throws up a smoke screen on the other implants that you have in your body. But this one here kind of popped up, and I took some cotton and kind of dabbed it a little bit. I pulled it up, and there was a hunk of a little gray, looked like carbon type stuff. It was about 5/16 of an inch long and about 1/4 of an inch wide. And it was actually dissolving. And I thought, okay, I'll put this in a plastic bag, take pictures of it. So I got a lot of pictures of it, and I put it in a book. It come out of my left leg. And that was an implant that I took to a UFO meeting in Springfield, Illinois. And I had a friend. She was a supervisor in biology at St. Louis University, and very, very well experienced in this type of thing, looking through microscopes. So she looked at this thing. She said, "My God, that's ugly." It looked like little, I guess you'd call them squids, or they look like little, brain neurons that were crawling around like the octopus. And I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm seeing." She said, "Oh my God, that's really ugly." She said, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "Out of my left leg." And she knew my ET and UFO history. So I took pictures of it, but I didn't get pictures of those little, because I sent the sample to a shop that they did a lot of those kind of pictures. But when I got it back a week later, the pictures weren't any better than what I took. I got my Sony camcorder and I stuck it to the microscope, and I took pictures with that. A lot of people don't know you can do that, but that Sony cam actually took microscopic pictures off of my, and I had better pictures. And I wasted a week time though, because the little squiggly things were gone. And so I got pictures of it dissolving. So that's what they call a carbon like based implant. And what it does, it infuses into your body. It attaches itself to your nerve endings and to your DNA. And I guess it ends up in your brain. And what they're doing is they're tweaking you. I had some people who are specialists in these ET events, and they said they're tweaking you. It's the reason why they come back and do these types of things all the time. So those were the implants, and they're in the book. But I went on, I'll do this real quick. During the 70s and 80s, I was really busy. I was working, going to school, and playing music. And until I passed out, I had to kind of back off a little bit. But I was so busy that I didn't really have an experience until about 95. It was in 1995. I was in my bedroom, as in Illinois. And matter of fact, all my UFOs I saw, all 6 of them were in Illinois, not out west. That's strange. I drove out there to see UFOs, and I didn't see them. I saw them right here at home. I was in bed, and it was dark, and my wife, ex-wife now, but I had a daughter who walked in, and I thought it was her. I put my chin in my right palm. It was about 2:00 in the morning, 3:00, somewhere in there. I thought she was walking in to get aspirins because she had headaches a lot. And I called out her name, and something walked past the mirror at the foot of the bed, and I couldn't see it because the wife liked it dark in there because she couldn't sleep. It wasn't really dark, so she had to have it like that. So this thing come around the other side of me, and I put my chin in my left palm, and I looked up at this thing, and it was standing about 3.5 feet tall, and it was the most wrinkled thing I think I've ever seen. It looked like a prune. It had 2 big eyes. It didn't have the black lenses on. I could see the whites of its eyes. I couldn't tell the color of its eyes because it was dark, but I would imagine they were also dark in color since all I could see was the whites of its eyes. The eyes were a little bit bigger than ours. It had a little pug nose with 2 little holes, and then it had a real slim mouth. It was only about 2 inches wide or 3 inches wide, somewhere in there, and it was just a slit. And this thing looked at me, and I laid there, and I was actually in fear for about 6 or 7 seconds, something like that. And then I just passed out. I don't know what happened. I got up probably about an hour or so later, and my eyes were just twitching and blinking. I couldn't control them. I asked my wife, I said, "Did you see or hear anything?" And they're not going to see or hear anything. And my wife now, I'll tell you that story pretty soon. But she said, "No, I didn't go back to bed." So I went in the bathroom, splashed my face, and my eyes just wouldn't quit twitching. And I went in. I was only about an hour or so away from going to work anyway. So I went into the living room, watched TV for a while, and I thought, wow, I can't sleep. I can't go back to bed. This was, my heart was pounding, and I said, this was a moment of shock and awe in a way. When you see these things, so these ETs, it is a little bit scary. You don't know what's going to happen. That's the only thing that I was afraid about. What's going to happen? Not what was going on at the present time, but where was I going or whatever. But that was the experience I had seeing one up close. From 2001 on, I saw orbs in the sky. Of course, like I said, I didn't count them. I saw various large, like red light craft, but I didn't think anything of it until 2009 and 2010. Then things really started happening. This is when I'll tell this heroical story. Is one of the bigger stories in the book. And if you see the book, you'll see the picture of myself and Hiroko standing together. She's a Japanese Asian young woman. She's about in her 30s, early 30s, it looked like. But I would have never put that picture in, Victor, if I knew she was a citizen of the States or a citizen of Japan, and she was an ET for sure. And when I first went there in Sedona, I was told actually by a native guide in Springfield, she was really good. I didn't like psychics or anything like that, but I liked her because she told me some things. She said, you're going to have damage to your car, but you're going to be able to drive it. And she said, you're going on a trip in the next week or so. I said, yes, I am. How'd you know? She said, guides are telling me. She pointed up. She said, guides. And then she said, your car be damaged, you'll be able to drive it. I said, okay. She said, when you think you're going to be leaving? I said, in about, I don't know, a week or so. And she said, well, on October 4th, I'm told that you're going to meet your first ET. I told her it's not my first. I said, but you're telling me I'm going to meet an ET? She goes, yes. Well, it just so happens that when I went to Sedona, I got there, took a real quick rest, and then I got to this jewelry shop, or it was a knickknack shop or whatever, a tourist trap. I went in there, and the women told me that they saw a UFO on Cathedral Rock. And anybody that's familiar with Sedona, Cathedral Rock is a pretty big place, really nice butte that you have there, and got parking there. And so I pulled in and parked. It was kind of cloudy, a little cool for Sedona. I started filming with my camcorder, and then here pulls in this little white car in behind me. And we were the only two there in that parking lot. And I guess nobody else is out because it was kind of cool and it looked like it's going to rain. She walks up to me smiling, and I filmed her a little bit, and I turned to her and I said, I'm looking for UFOs. I said, is that what you're doing? She said, no. And so I dropped the camera and I said, are you waiting for somebody? She goes, no. I said, are you going to take a hike or anything? I said, I wouldn't do that because it looks like it's going to rain. She goes, no. And she says, I'm here to see you. I said, what? She said, I'm supposed to meet you. I said, why are you supposed to meet me? Do you know me? She said, yes, I know you. I said, I don't know you. And then it started sprinkling. We got in the car, we started talking, and there was another car that pulled up beside me, just a space away from me. And this young guy looked like an NSA person. He had a headset on, looked like he was listening in on us. And he didn't turn to me. He did not look at me at all. And I was sitting there. I said, okay, is this a setup? You got a woman that got into my car, and then you got this guy that could be robbing me. And I thought of that because I, always have this military type training that makes me aware of my surroundings. So I looked at my console, and in my console, I had a gun. I had 2 licenses to carry a gun. So I had a gun there, and she looked at the console and looked at me. She had this really glaring, powerful look. And I thought she wasn't normal. She looked at me, and I had to turn my head. I said, Hiroko, don't do that. I said, your eyes are going to burn the back of my head off. And she just looked at me, and I said, do you know that guy? She said, no. And we started talking. This guy took off, and then we started talking about, she said she knew 20 languages and she could not read English. So there was a card that I had that was sitting on my desk, and she said, could you read that to me? And I read it to her, and I said, you can't read English, but you can speak it. She goes, yes. And then she starts telling me about her mom and dad treated her mean when she was in Tokyo, said she was from Tokyo. And she said that they treated her mean, and she started crying. And I put my hand on top of her hand. I said, that's okay. I said, you You can show emotions to me. That's fine. And her hand was so burning hot. I mean, I've never felt the heat from off of a person. And it was cool that night. She just had a real light sweater on top and a white tank top under that. And she had Levi's on, or blue jeans. And they were soaked in mud, but the mud was dry that she did the night before. She went up on Cathedral Rock the night before, but she was telling me that she has to have a baby. And when she was telling me that, this guy pulled up again beside us, and he never looked. I said, "What's going on here?" And I looked at her, and I said, and then when I turned and looked at her, she looked like she shrank down in the seat, like a little gray. And I said, "Oh my God!" And I guess my mind was she had me numbed down or dumbed down, whatever. And I didn't pay much attention to it, but I did see her shrink in the seat. And I turned around, looked at this guy. And when I turned back to her, she was back to normal size. And I said, "What is she playing with my mind or something?" And the red flags were popping up, and I was taking note of everything because I knew there was something weird about her. And then she said she had a boyfriend, but he was mean to her too. I said, "Really?" I said, "You're wanting to have a baby, right?" She said, "Yeah, I need to have a baby." I said, "You need to have a baby?" I said, "Well, you should marry this guy in Tokyo and have a baby." She goes, "Well, he's too mean." I said, "Oh, really? Okay, fine then." But we went on to talking a lot of different things. I took some notes. I got back to my room, and of course, I had a legal pad, and I took a lot of notes on her. And some of the things are in the book. I had some other notes, small talk and everything like that. But I said she went to visit White Sands, New Mexico. I said, "Why would a single woman like you go to White Sands, New Mexico?" She said, "I wanted to see the sand." And I looked at her and I said, "I find that kind of strange." Well, this guy come in for the third time, and he stayed about 5 minutes, and he never looked. I kept watching him to see if he was going to look at me. He didn't. He went on. So I told her, I said, "Why don't we meet tomorrow for breakfast? It's getting late and it's starting to rain." And she goes, "Okay." And so we met at 101 Omelets, a place there in Sedona. It's a great restaurant. And we met there. She was about 15 minutes late, but there's something that told me that she was coming. I got a telepathic message that said she was coming. So she finally pulled in about 15 minutes late. We went out. We went visiting the Buttes she had to go back to Phoenix, Arizona to go to LA, she said, at 3:00. And so we come back, we got on top of the airport lookout. So we went to another restaurant before she left, and then she stared at me. She said, "I like you." I said, "I like you too, Hiroko." Now, mind you, this wasn't a romantic interlude with an older guy and a younger woman. It had nothing to do with that. And I even felt that way. I kind of felt she was my daughter. And actually, her bone structure and her chin kind of looked like mine. I had somebody point that out. We ended up leaving that afternoon. She wanted my pictures. I got about 9 pictures of her and I together and everything. She said, "Could you send those pictures to me?" I said, "How?" And she gave me an email address, and I could not. I had a private detective, a friend of mine, and he tried to look up that email address. He could not find it. He said, "I turned it over to some guys in Chicago, and they could not find that email address." But it worked. I got the pictures to her. But it seemed like there was 3 different people that wrote back to me about the pictures. Well, let's fast forward about 5-6 months ahead of time into March 17th. It was St. Patrick's Day. It was really nice weather for Illinois, about 74 degrees. My cousin and I was sitting on the front porch of my house, and then we saw these 3. There was a woman and 2 young guys, and they were Japanese. My cousin said, "Are those Chinese?" I said, "No, they're Japanese." I said, "I think I know who they are." And he said, "Who are they?" And I said, "I'll tell you." They started approaching us, and she stopped about halfway, about 150 feet or so away from me. And then she turned her head so I couldn't see her face. But I knew who it was. She had the same clothes on. She had the real thin sweater and the Levi's or denim pants. And the 2 young guys come up to us. One looked like he was about 15, the other one 16. And the one was older. He was taller. And they just asked one question. I said, "Where's the new Walmart at?" And I told them. And then that was it. I couldn't talk. I couldn't ask any questions. My cousin, who actually, he gets talking so much, he's actually turns out to be rude to new people he meets. And I thought, okay, he's going to say some smart things to him, but he wasn't even talking. His eyes were glassy. He was looking down at the front porch and the floor there. And I was sitting there looking at these 2. I could see them. I watched them, but I could not talk. I wanted so much to ask. That's Hiroko. And I wanted so much to do, but I couldn't. I was dumbed down. They'll let you have certain senses like eyesight. You can see, you can watch, observe, but don't do anything, don't move. So the older one went in my house a couple of different times. He come out with I call it my pleather case. It's not real leather, but it's weatherproofing my notes. And in that case, I had notes on his mom. And that's what I'm saying. I'm calling them, those two boys for her, that was their mom that was with him, Hiroko. And he looked at me and kind of gave me a dirty look. And apparently he took some notes out of that file. And the next day or two, I took a look at it and I found that those notes were gone. But luckily, I had duplicate notes made. I copied duplicate notes, so that was okay. I had my notes on her anyway. But then they walked away. And when they got across my road in front of me, my house, and they were walking on this other road heading north to meet up with Hiroko, I come to and I was watching them. And then my cousin, it took him a few more seconds to come to, and he says, "Where are they at?" I said, "They're right there." And I said, "They're walking and joining the woman on which I know." And he says, "What just happened?" I said, "We were dumbed down." And he's not used to this stuff. And I always joke around. I say he's about as shallow as a dry creek bed when it comes to this phenomena, So I told him, I said, they're ETs. He said, "Dave," he started cussing. He said, "You're going to get killed by these things." He said, "You're messing around with them too much." He said, "They're going to kill you." I said, "No, they haven't killed me yet." And so they walked together and I said, "Let's watch where they go." They walked up to the stop sign and then we looked just for a second or so. We turned, looked at each other, and then we turned back and they were gone in a flash. And she wanted the baby. So I had another regressed dream that I was in the room number 14 at the lodge where I stayed. I asked the manager the next following year if I can go to that room. So I went to that room and I took pictures of the room and where I was walking. I woke up, it was around 3, 4, the magic time in the morning, and I saw this hose going towards my groin area. And it was brown in color. And I had my right knee up in the air and I kicked it away. And when I did, I went out. I was totally out this time. But then in the regressed dream, they walked me back and forth in my room. I went there to the room, like I said, and I took pictures and I sat there and looked at it on my laptop. I said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what happened." I went back to research my path I walked and what I saw at the little table.
She wanted a baby, and she had yours.
Yes, she did. Yes, she got it some other way, so she got it. But for a person at a convention one time, she called me over, and I'll do this real quick. But she called me over. I said, "No, I don't need a reading." I said, I can read everything myself." She goes, "No, I need something. I need to tell you something." She says, "You were abducted here a while back." I said, "Yes, I was." And she said, "You met an alien, didn't you?" I said, "Yes." She said, "That was your daughter." I said, "Wow." And I said, "The two younger ones?" She said, "Those are your grandkids." Ooh. And and I finally realized that. I was on a talk show one time and Richard Surrett, he asked me a real direct question on that. He said, "You think those were your kids?" I just went quiet for a couple of seconds and I said, "Yes, they were."
Amazing story. We'll be back with more of Dave after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
back on Destination Unlimited. My guest this week is Dave Emmons. His new book is called They. What Do They Want? Dave, tell us about your freezing experiences.
Okay, we'll go through these real quick. I know we're running out of time. The freezing experience, I wake up at 3 o'clock, the magic time, and I feel my body and it's frozen. I'm not cold or cool. I'm frozen. The whole body, it's like taking frozen chicken out of the freezer. And I felt that way. And I wasn't thinking. My mind was turned off. I got up out of bed, went into the bathroom to take a leak. And then after that, I was shaking so violently. I was shaking the bed so violently. My wife did not wake up. And she usually wakes up if my cell phone drops off the nightstand and hits the carpeted floor. She'll wake up. She'll say, "What's that?" She hears every little thing. But that night, with the bed shaking violently and me cold, she did not wake up. So they put her out. My freezing sessions, I talked to the doctors, 3 doctors. They don't know what they are. I had them August 13th, 2016, August 16, 2017. It happens in August a lot. And then 2018, it was January 24th. For some reason, they missed their date on 2018, August 10th, 2019, September 2nd, 2021. And in 2020, they were here in my house. So that's why I didn't go through a freezing session. I was told I'm being taken to another dimension. They're taking my soul, my energy, and my consciousness, and they're putting it in an avatar type of holograph. And then I'm going to another dimension. They're tweaking me. That's what I was told by I've talked to several experts about it. And the doctor said they couldn't tell what's wrong because nothing on my blood or anything like that would tell them that those are caused from a medical problem. It's not. They couldn't understand why they were happening almost on the same day every year, once a year. So that's the phenomenal thing. And what is it that you wanted to talk about, Victor? The next one is
okay. No, let me just respond to that. So in essence, what they're doing is they're readying you for some purpose.
Yes, I was told, and this is far out for me, and I've been coming back to these people and talking to them about it. I had a group session here about 2 weeks ago, and there were some very expertise people in this. They had a lot of expertise in it. They told me they're tweaking me because I'm some sort of an ambassador to another dimension or two. And I told Linda Moulton Hall, talked to her on the phone. She goes, "Why are they coming here?" And I said, "Well, they're hybriding us. They're taking DNA. They're taking our consciousness levels. They're taking our memories. They're uploading, download. They have these devices that they can do that with, and they know you in and out. They know your history and how you're living." But I said, that's what they're doing. They're hybriding us, and they're turning us more into more conscious people, peaceful people. If we become more conscious and more peaceful, they'll come down here and land on a White House lawn. I hope they don't do that now. I hope they wait a couple more years.
I actually pray for that they intervene in the world that we're experiencing right now. The apocryphal book of Enoch shares the story of Enoch, who was briefly mentioned in Genesis, and his ascent to the realms of heaven and meeting angels and watchers. You're about to publish a book about the watchers. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I'm working on it now, Victor. It's a slow grind because I had a sister that had medical problems, and it kind of slowed me down this past week or two. But I'm trying to get this book done by the end of June or first part of July. I'm talking about angels and watchers, and also the mysteries. I'm going to add a third little subtitle there because I think angels and watchers and guides are the same, and they could be possibly ETs that are mixed in with that. So we can't tell if they're invisible ETs, because I had them in my house 2 years ago, back in 2020. I even have a couple of pictures of on my trail cam that they were setting my alarms out. So I figured something was coming in the house. So I put my trail cam out, and I got about 2 or 3 videos and a couple of pictures of a reptilian, of a Michelin man, and also of a bright entity that come into the house in my kitchen area, and it materialized, and it was really tall, probably about 8 feet tall, and it was just really bright. That's all you can see on a camera. But they visited me then, and I just, that's what's been happening to me lately. But I'm talking about angels now because in Vietnam, I had my car run over me in New Mexico, and this woman saw it happen, and it rolled over my left shoulder. What happened was the car engaged in the gear, and I'm sure I put it in park. Yeah, it's not my mistake. I don't know yet, but it started rolling. I tried to jump in the car, and the car went faster because the air conditioner kicked on, and the service people told me that that's what it does. It speeds up. But when it did, it drugged me. I tried to hang on the car, tried to be a Hercules, and I fell down. and I scraped up my left leg on the gravel. And then I smelled rubber when the tar come by me, and there was a woman screaming about 20 feet away from me. And I heard her screaming, and the car actually ran over my part of my back and my right shoulder. And I have tar marks on my shirt, and I took a picture of that. And that woman said, "Are you okay? The car ran right over you." And I said, I'm at Angel Rock. I said, maybe that's what saved me. There's a little butte there. It's called Angel Rock. So that's where it was at. But I do believe in angels. I believe that they helped me in Vietnam a couple of times. I had a couple of snipers that tried to take me out, but they were bad shots. But snipers usually aren't that bad of shots. So I'm thinking that maybe I was saved. And then there was some serious attacks we had, and I was in charge, and I went quiet. I went quiet and listened to what's coming into me telepathically, and then it told me what to do. And by that time, though, it happened to me at the refinery too. We had a real bad incident where I had a bunch of new guys, and they went crazy, and I went quiet, and I ran out, take a look at what was going on. But they were, what's wrong with you? So the unit's going to blow up, and you're not saying anything. I said, I'm thinking. That's why. And I said, do this, do that. And I didn't know how to do that. Something else was telling me what to do. And it was my angels or my guides watching me. So that's why I'm getting into angels and guides. And the watchers back in Jesus' time, they actually were helping him. There's some stories about the watchers who were advising him not to go certain places, or the Roman soldiers were coming and they told him to get out of the house or go somewhere else. So the watchers are they come here in human form. There's 9 different angels, and I can't name them all off, but there's a seraphim angel that I kind of zeroed in on. And the seraphim angel is a serpent angel, and it comes to earth. And when it does, it takes on a tall, handsome figure, human. And I thought to myself, is this reptilian? If you get into the ET part about it, could it be reptilian? Is there a crossover with the angels, watchers, and ETs? I think there is, and it's just like ghosts and these poltergeists. Are they the same? Are they invisible? Actually, Bigfoot can go invisible too. So Bigfoot is no doubt also an alien. But the angels and watchers, it fascinates me because I saw an angel in 1972. I was in my mom's house at the time because I just come back from the military, and I was getting an apartment, and I was there. It was about 3:00 in the morning, same, always 3, 4 o'clock. I felt the presence. I looked up and I saw this lady that was in white dress, looks like a wedding gown, had a veil over her face. She turned and walked away from me. And then I followed her into my mom's room. I asked my mom and said, did you see anything? I said, there was a white angel or a woman in white come in your room. And no, she said, no, I didn't. And in 1999, I saw the same thing in my house in Godfrey. I saw this angel. I got up 3:00, same time, and I felt this presence. I looked at it. At the foot of my bed was this woman in white again, and she had a veil over her face. And she walked into my bathroom, and I followed her, and she disappeared. So that, I think, was an angel. They say angels can be male and female. A lot of the biblical accounts say that they're mostly male. They refer to them as male, but I think they could be female too, because I saw one. I saw a female, and my sister saw just a week or two ago while she was having her surgery. The day before, there was a woman that walked in, and she didn't see the door close or open because the light comes in from the hallway. And she was laying there, and this woman walks to the foot of her bed. She wore a green top. She's about 5'6", 7", and she said heavyweight, maybe a little bit. She had black pants, and she said, you're going to be all right. She turns around and walks back out. And my sister says she didn't see the light come back on. She's intuitive, my sister. So she must have got some of this from ET visits or whatever, because she's very intuitive. And so I told her that's an angel. They come in human form. And the watchers have been here for years. Ezekiel, you can go through all the biblical stories and find the ET seems like they've been involved. Enoch, the same thing with Moses and with Noah. They said Noah was tall, about 6'4". He was white in complexion, had bright eyes, blue eyes, and he just glowed. They said so he couldn't have been, one of the Middle Eastern, type of people. So that's what interested me in angels, watchers, and the mysterious things in history. I want to get into that and find out and see if there's a correlation between the 3 or 4 of them.
Angels, ETs, extra dimensionals, whatever they are, wherever they come from, may they help us get through these terrible times that we're experiencing. My guest is Dave Emmons. Dave, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you.
Okay. You can find out a lot about me just by typing in Dave Emmons UFO abductions on Google, and it'll give you all kinds of newspaper articles. It'll give you interviews I've had on other radio stations, and actually as a host and as a guest on the internet. And I have a page on my publisher's website that's Hangar One Publishing, and it's a Hydrochecks. It's Doug and Alex Hydrocheck. They're the owners of it, and they're very good people. So look on that page for that. And on my book, What Do They Want? And I think I found out the sequel is almost ready. I'm going to write the sequel after this book runs its course, but it's What Do They Want? And it's being sold on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and Roku, whatever, Roku. I keep forgetting that, but it's out there. Amazon's the best to pick it from. It's easy to get and fast to get. So that's the place to go. And my second book, it's in the publisher's hands right now. It's called Senseless Wars, Combat Veterans Perspective. So that will tell you about the waste in our treasure and our blood in fighting wars that never panned out for us. You can't tell countries what they should be like or how to run their country, because they'll go right back to what they want. We can't tell people what to do around the world.
And to that I say amen. Dave, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back when the next book comes out.
Thank you very much, Victor.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.